All right. Hello from Amrock Fab Lab. We're live for our monthly car chat with Pam Oakes of US Auto Training. And tonight we're going to look at some artful cars, I think, and talk about the art of automotive as we prep for our August Art Appreciation Month. You want to introduce yourself, Pam, and catch folks up a little bit?
Sure. My name is Pam Oakes. I'm an ASC Master Automotive and Medium Heavy Duty Truck Technician and Trainer. I've been doing this for almost 30 years. I'm a fourth generation. I grew up on the east side of Detroit. My great-grandfather, my grandfather, my dad, and myself. I just love vehicles. I really do. And I was kind of a late bloomer because after going through college and all that, I was actually over at the newspaper, but on the side, I was repairing vehicles for extra money because they don't pay reporters like they should back then. And I says, why am I doing this? And I called up my dad and I says, I'm coming down, make room. I never looked back, and everybody thought I was nuts. And it was so funny because I would say about 15 years after that, one of the reporters who worked for me came into the shop and work on his vehicle. And he says, he says, everybody thought you were nuts that you left the paper when you did. He says, now nobody thinks you're insane. Everybody thinks, why didn't I do something like that? So, follow the dream, guys. It's all about following the dream. So today we're going to be talking about car art, as August is art month. And as you can see in the background here, we're going to share a screen. We pull this up, and we were talking about how I'm fourth generation. Well, if you can see in the background there, and I believe you can, go over to the sharing the screen here. There it is. That's the love of my life. Peter, I've been unfaithful, but even before I met him. That is it. That is my great-grandfather's 69 Plymouth. And I put it in shows for, God knows, decades, and a bunch of trophies. But as you can see, that's an older picture when I had it midnight blue and I had the Van Dutch striping on it. You guys are in the automotive industry, you're familiar with him. He's a friend of the family's, fortunately. And he striped the vehicle. I did a couple of color changes on it. I even did regrettably plum crazy. That car, not good and plum crazy. But I went to the medium seafoam green or blue, that they had, the other Chrysler color. Car has a lot of memories because I was there when my great-grandfather, of course, he started out with Detroit Truck and then went over to Standard Truck. We have a newspaper article from the Detroit Free Press in 1917 when he made the move over. And he got in the automotive industry because actually he was an officer in the Detroit Police Department. And they knew Prohibition was coming. My great-grandmother says, we need you in a safer environment for the family, because they knew it was going to get nasty. So he says, all right. And needless to say, he went from Standard over to Hupmobile, and then he opened his own place on the east side of Detroit. And it's kind of amusing, wasn't at the time, but the people my great-grandmother was trying to keep him away from, like the Purple Gang and some of Capone's guys coming over, because Chicago to Detroit, and right across the river, the Detroit River, was Windsor. They had all the distilleries there, and it was, that was their supply line for Chicago. So when they'd have an automotive problem, they'd go to my great-grandfather to fix it. And I asked him, I said, so what did you do, these guys, while you're working on their car? And he said that they would sit there and play cards. He wouldn't say anything to them. He'd fix it and get them out of there. So it's kind of funny how that all morphed into doing what he was trying to avoid. But needless to say, it was a great career. Like I said, he had his own shop. And then when World War II came around, he went to Dodge, Maine, right there in Hamtramck for the war effort, and they were making tanks. And he was just old enough. He stayed on, retired from Chrysler, and needless to say, he wanted a Roadrunner. 78 when he got it, and when I went down, he ordered it. It has power steering of all things. It's a manual steering wheel with power steering, which is kind of nice. But I remember asking him, I says, oh, it had that green, and that green came back. I don't understand how that green came back. It was a screen. You could see the metallic flake in it. And I'm not a green.
Oh, that's so pretty.
And I looked at him, I says, why didn't you get the blue? I wanted the blue. And he says, Grandma wanted the green. And I says, well, when I get it, it's going to be blue. And back in 79, bought it off of him for $600. That was the book price. And about a year and a half later, I saved my pennies and it was blue.
Oh, that's awesome.
He lived to be almost 90, and he had a few rides in it while it was blue and he'd come to visit. So it's a lot of memories in that vehicle. And I still have the car today.
Wow.
The Blue Moon goes out when there's hardly any traffic. It's four-wheel drum. The thing is, it's going to be 53 next month. It's going to be 53. And I'm coming to a point telling you all this background and story and everything. It's 53 years old. It's running around, right? Looks great. Take it to a show anytime. Why is that vehicle 53 and you can get in, they'll start right up? It's because you maintain it. People still have that love affair with cars. Everybody has their story. And when you have that love affair, you have that favorite car or two or three, you maintain them because you want to keep them around. And that's the whole key. When you go out there and you're going to purchase a car, then you choose the one that you go out in the driveway to get in the car to go to work, and you go, I'm really glad I bought that car. I really like that car. I like the color. I like the way it looks. I like the way it fits. Just going down to a car lot and just picking out a car, it's not like this. It's very personal. And Terry, I'm sure you've had some examples like that. What was your favorite car?
Oh my gosh. Oh my goodness. I'm of a Cuban background, so you can imagine, there they keep cars running forever. So, and we can have that conversation too. I'm trying to adjust my lighting here. I had to move, so I had a better connection. I've got a little halo over my head. So yeah. I don't know. Oh my gosh. So when Steve and I were dating, he had a 1970, I think we talked about this. I think it was a 79 El Camino. No, it was a 76 El Camino. Sorry, it was a 1976 El Camino. That was a beautiful car. Beautiful lines. It was just so much fun. Back in the day, the bench seats, right? Still had bench seats in it, which I really miss. One of the joys of these old cars was the seating in them, right? Big and spacious and so much fun.
You could take a healthy swing and not hit your sister. Yeah.
But that car was spectacular. I mean, we took it camping. We had a topper on it at one point. We had it for a while. It just had I think it just had the cover on it, and then later on we got a topper for it, and then it was like a little camper, and we could take it all over the place. I remember taking it down to the Everglades. We were with an astronomy group, and we'd go down there and pull down the tailgate and hang out in El Camino and watch the stars, and it was just absolutely beautiful. A beautiful car to run. It always looked nice, I think, we talk about people buy cars because they're pretty, right? I mean, if you can at all afford it, my Civic is like, it's functional. it's a good car. It does its thing. But when I think of my favorite cars, that El Camino always comes to mind because of how pretty it is, you know.
And because you enjoyed it, you maintained it.
Yeah, we did. And we actually, the only reason we sold it is because we had our second child, and the El Camino seats exactly 3 with that bench seat. And I actually still tell our middle kiddo today, it's like, it was really a tough choice. You know, do we work to put, get a car, we can put that car seat, that second car seat in there, or okay, you're a cute kid, we'll keep you, a car has to go. But yeah, so there were some limitations, but boy, there's some cars that you can keep for certain use or certain periods of time, and then they don't really have a function beyond that, right? Like you take your car out when there's not much traffic, it's going to be okay.
It's very personal, yeah.
Yeah,
because it's got 4-wheel drum and
my aunt had my aunt that was raised by an elderly aunt in New Jersey, on a farm, and they had this fabulous old Ford truck. Must have been from the 40s. She could never drive, so she kept it in a little garage, so it was like spotless, and it had the old wooden sides on the back of it.
Really?
And it got driven exactly like 3 times a month to go to the farmer's market. And she never learned how to drive, so a neighbor would come over, drive us to the farmer's market, and come back. That was in the 60s and 70s as well. That was a beautiful car. And I remember those like really old ones had those giant steering wheels.
Yes.
Right? So you'd get in there, it's like, ooh.
That's because they're manual, you'd have to.
Yeah, you needed that extra.
Yeah, you'd have to have that extra torque on there, because if it was standing still, it wasn't so easy to turn. You'd have a little momentum, yeah.
Exactly.
We're spoiled nowadays, because now, we went to power steering where you could just take your finger and move it. Yeah. Then you went to power assist.
Right. And then when your power steering goes out, what happens to everybody, right? It's like, oh, I can't drive it.
Well, now you have electric power steering, but if the electric power steering goes out, you have manual steering.
Right, yeah.
So it's not like you're going to get in a wreck or anything, but you're going to have to really work at that wheel. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I bet that was gorgeous. Do you know whatever happened to that truck?
I have no idea. I was little when we were riding in it. I mean, the 3 of us would get in that thing and go bouncing into Atlantic City to the farmer's market, and had Connor's Market on the side of the truck. It was pretty awesome. I have no idea what happened to it. Probably sold it at some point. Well, it disappeared along with the glass doorknobs on our house,
Oh, okay. That's a crazy story, I'm sure. I'd like to hear that one.
So what do you think? Are there equivalents to the classic cars from those eras today, do you think? Is there anything? Yeah. Wow.
We were talking actually this past week. I was up north with a group of other automotive professionals, and one of the guys has a 57 Corvette that his dad left him. And again, it's pristine. He might do Woodward run this year. He's out of Chicago. And we were talking about that, and he says, the car shows, what are they going to have today that you're going to see in a car show 20, 25 years from now? And the only things that we could think of would be possibly a Corvette or a Mustang, something like that. Because you got to remember, there's more modules in today's cars and trucks than were in the space shuttle. These modules need to be updated. Eventually, they're electrified, they'll fail sometime. And when you get to a certain point, you're not going to be able to replace these things. And unfortunately, what's going to happen? Well, you're going to try to find the part out of the junkyard. And then electrical out of a junkyard is never a good idea, but sometimes we're desperate. So, you'll try that. How long is that going to run for? I don't know. But, some of the older classics you may see, but there's really nothing like an antique, like we were just talking about. There are hundreds of thousands of them out there, Some are in garages, like you're saying in your aunt's garage. Some of them have been kept like mine through the family, or my friend who's got the Corvette. And then there's some that just, you were lucky. You were just at the right place at the right time. Another friend of mine who was up there, he just got a Zephyr, and he moved down to Florida a few months ago. I'm going to go up and see it in a few weeks, see what he bought. But there's this thing called Hemmings Motor News, and it's like the old Sears catalog that we used to get at Christmas time. Like, I want that, and I want this, and I want that. It's the same. Yeah. It's not, it's good, but it's not good, and I want to get that. And, oh, look, I got that.
Yeah.
And all these other ads for accessories, things like that you may be missing a little piece of trim. You can find it in there.
For heck, even hood ornaments were a thing, right? I mean, oh my gosh, hood ornaments were like, that was your little crowning piece. You'd shine up on the top there. And yeah. I remember when I learned to drive, the advice that I got at the time, in school, right? Even the driver's ed cars all had hood ornaments, right? I'm giving away how old I am, but I remember the instructor saying, "Now don't get your eyes stuck on the hood ornament. You got to look past the hood ornament." And I realized, like, not too long ago, with some students learning how to drive, it's like they don't have to look at hood ornaments anymore.
I never thought about that. Yeah,
yeah,
yes, you could. And they had hood ornaments well into the 80s, and then they kind of just disappeared.
Yeah. They didn't like automatic car washes or something. I'm not too sure what the deal was with those.
When I had my shop, people would come in looking for them because kids would steal them off the cars.
Yeah.
And, there's a lot of tension on a hood ornament, that little chain. I mean, so it flex and everything. But, and then they just kind of slowly died off. That's a piece of art that's lost.
Yeah.
That's lost. Nobody's going to have a hood ornament anymore.
Maybe we could start a new hood ornament craze and we tell people how cool they were.
But with there you go again.
Yeah.
With the new stuff, what's going to be, at a show? You can't have a hood ornament because you have a camera.
Yeah.
And windshield, forward facing.
Yeah, that's true.
And see the hood ornament and go,
I always get a collision warning constantly or something.
Something like that.
My hood ornament keeps triggering my collision warning. Yeah, that's pretty funny.
That's good. The automatic emergency brake would be.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. And I still you watch the Jay Leno, when he does the Jay Leno thing where he looks at the collection of cars he's got that are so gorgeous, and they look at all these cars. Yeah, and you're right. You're never really looking at a modern car in any of those because the lines on them it is function over form, I guess. And it's and I don't know if there's a place for that anymore, right? Because of costs and things like that, unless people are doing the kits and customizing their own vehicles. There's a little bit of that. I do know some people who do like custom hoods or custom wheels. That seems to be the bigger piece of art on them anymore. Are the custom wheels.
But for the purists, when they see like somebody's done something, we go, no, just put it over in the other lot. You guys don't belong in our lot in this show. But it's crazy that you're mentioning how they're doing hoods and things like that, because they actually have a couple of locations where they have 3D printers that they're printing car body parts. And they were talking about this a few years ago about making your own car, your own design, unique to anybody, as in the body parts, just like a kit car. Right. Instead, you have your own body design.
Mm-hmm. So if we're talking about consumer car, and there's some old cars out there, right? I mean, sometimes you can get a pretty old car for a halfway decent price.
Yes.
And then maybe bring it back to its former glory or something. What are some of the things people would look for if you're purchasing an older car? What are some good older ones that are reliable? I mean, I know it's an iffy thing when you're looking at used cars, right? But I think collector cars at least have a little bit more love put into them over the years. So.
Yeah, you're not going to find one of these in a used car lot or anything like that. If you did, there's something going on. Something's not right. You really need to have it checked out. And definitely have it checked out for like the local sheriff's department to make sure it hadn't been stolen.
First place to start.
because yeah, that's not a place that you'd find an antique normally. But in fact, I know of one antique off the top of my head. We were working on it at the shop, and one of my friends in Rotary, he happened to be in the crimes division in the local sheriff's department, and they would borrow one of our lifts to go through and check the numbers to make sure. But we had one in the lot in our bay at one point, and I called him because something wasn't right with this car. And yeah, it was an antique. It was stolen, and they impounded it right there. Wow. And the owner's like going, "Well, I have the car." I'm like,
yeah,
something wasn't on the up and up.
So on your classic, what do you do to it? I mean, you have to drive it periodically, right? I mean, you do drive it periodically. How often do you take it out?
You should take it out maybe every 4 or 5 weeks.
I'm just thinking of people who have like grandma or grandpa's car in the garage that they still haven't done anything with, and
just to keep the seals, everything lubricated, the fluids going through. Another thing too that is very important if you have an antique like that is to make sure you have stabilizer in the fuel.
Okay.
Because some individuals, they'll just put whatever is off the rack, and they don't go and get non-ethanol, which is what you really should have in there, non-ethanol fuel.
And you find non-ethanol?
Yes. Actually, on Wawa.
Oh, okay.
In the area, Tampa Bay area, you'll see all the different colors. You have the green, and you got the red for the numbers, and then you'll see a blue, which is like $1.50 more. That's the non-ethanol.
Well, that's interesting.
But if you're putting ethanol in, put the stabilizer in there, because fuel with ethanol actually has a shelf life of 90 to 100 days. It'll break down, and it'll ruin a lot of things.
That's for everybody who got fuel for the last hurricane and put it in gas cans that they're not going to use right away.
That's right. That's another thing too. Yeah, just so it comes in a little pink bottle. You can get it. I've seen it even at the grocery store.
I didn't even think of that because we filled up. We didn't know what to expect with that last hurricane, so we filled up for the little generator we have. And Steve was actually just saying, next time we run low on the cars, just pour it in the cars, which we'll do. Exactly. But I forgot, and I had to fill up with regular gas. Like, oh, we still got the little cans, so we need to use those up soon or throw the stabilizer in them, I guess.
Throw the stabilizer. So let's see. We did that at 4th of July weekend. So we have until the end of September.
Right.
To get rid of it, to pour it in our tanks.
What happens if you don't have the stable? What happens after 90? After 98?
It breaks down.
It's not effective, or
it won't work. It actually will have this sweet smell to it.
Okay.
Where the sugars, I guess, are breaking down with this sweet odor to it. Don't count on that, but it won't have the combustion capability that it had before it expired.
Okay.
But it will cause, like you'd have road salt that would dry up and you'd see like particles.
Right,
it gets nasty like that.
Oh wow!
It ruins fuel pumps and vehicles. So even those people who go up north for the summer,
leave their cars in the garage or
something. Their cars, they should be putting stabilizer in. We would be doing a lot of fuel pumps at the shop come the fall.
Oh, that makes sense.
And fuel pumps now, before they used to be a couple $100.
What do they run now?
$500, $600, $1,100, $1,200. Yeah, for the ones in the tank.
And that's old.
Not worth it. But so you'd be looking at that. Another thing is you have a reputable. You can go through a reputable broker. Or word of mouth. Go to a car show. Sometimes you'll see for sale signs on there. You can do it that way.
I won top dollar at a car show, don't they?
It depends. Depends how bad they need to get, if they have to need to get rid of it, or how bad they want to swap for something else. Some of them they'll swap for another car. I was in a car club for years, and they would do this. This one guy, he'd fix them up and he'd drive it for about a year or so, and then he'd sell it and he'd find something else and fix it up. He just enjoyed doing it.
Yeah.
And I would flip. I always have Plymouth. I always will. But I had other show cars too. And, you drive them for a while and it's fun. And then it's like, okay, let's find something else. So, you'd sell it. I mean, one time I had a 63 New Yorker.
Oh my goodness.
It got shipped down, and this is how you find them. It got shipped down to Florida from Oklahoma City. It was an Oklahoma City Shrine parade car, screaming red, but everything was original on it, except, of course, for the carb, the points, condenser plugs, stuff like that. But I mean, the seats were all original, the carpet. No, I take that back. The carpet was changed out. Seats were original. I had electric windows. It had AC in it, factory AC, everything.
Wow.
We had the little push, the flip for the park brake. And I mean, it had a 413 in there. And once you wound that thing up, and I mean, it flew. But how I got a hold of it was I had a customer come in, didn't know anything about cars really. And he was talking to someone, found this vehicle, and he thought it was an Impala. He was looking for an Impala, and when it showed up, an Impala, a Chevy Impala, it was a Chrysler New Yorker Imperial. And he's like, I hate this. And he brought it into me because he wanted me to look at the HVAC on it, the AC. He says it wasn't cooling enough. And there's a for sale sign on it. And I'm like, really? I'm like, you're selling this? And he told me the story about how he thought it was an Impala and it's not an Impala, da-da-da-da-da. And I'm like, how can you mix those two up? And I'm like, okay. He says, how much do you want for this? And he says, give me $4,000. And I says, yeah, we're doing this today. And that afternoon, I met him down at Division of Motor Vehicles, and we gave him the money, and he gave me the title. A few weeks later, he came back and he says, you know how much that car is worth? And I'm like, yeah, I know how much that car is really worth. And I'm like, and? So I think maybe he was half expecting me to say, well, yeah, I'll give you some more money to it. No, you're the fool who sold it for $4,000 and it's worth about $13,000. No, I'm not doing this. But that car was a lot of fun. We had a lot of fun in that vehicle. And I swapped out, they had the hubcaps to it, and I swapped them out. Yes, and that was George you just heard, one of our Great Danes. Swapped out the hubcaps, and I got the wire rims that was an option on it. Had a lot of fun, and when the time came that I just was kind of over it, there's nothing wrong with it. I gave it to the local United Way, and they had a raffle, and somebody won the raffle. They brought it in. We worked on it here and there, the oil changes, rotations, just minor stuff. And then it disappeared from the area, so they moved away. So I don't know whatever happened to that one. But for that, I picked up a C3, a Corvette, 77 C3. We had a lot of fun with that. And nothing was factory on that. And had side pipes. You get out of the car, you have to watch because of the side pipes. And I had, at that point, Cassie Pup, that dog loved that car. Every Saturday afternoon, she wanted to go for a ride in that car. And she would, just cry at the garage door. And one time, Peter and I, he had to get on one end and I had to get on the other end to get out of the car. But I swapped the side pipes out on that. And so it was just open headers. And I mean, the noise was unbelievable. And she just looked at me and I looked at her and I says, yeah, let's go around the block. And we went around the block, the open headers. And she's like, yeah. My mom had a little hat for her, It was
that's
so
funny.
But she passed, and that was like kind of the end of that car. I just felt too bad to drive it because she wasn't there. And then we got, like I said, there's a couple of others in between, but that's how you find cars, just like that. You have to be patient. Divorce cars, you get a real good deal with those.
It depends on who's selling his car.
Yeah, but you really do, because they got to they have to liquidate the
Right.
properties. So you can get a really good deal on those. We had somebody in our club that was having an affair. None of us knew at the time. but he showed up at one of the monthly meetings, and the car, this really, really nice 35 Ford, it had these hammer dents in the fenders.
Ooh, yeah.
And we're like, oh my God, what happened? You know what I mean? And he had somebody pinstripe in there, ex-wife Fury, and then he put arrows to him. And he sold that, and he moved away too. But somebody got a really good deal on that car because he had to get rid of stuff. Probably would have been to her benefit not doing that, but
Probably.
Anyway, but that's how you find deals. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
How you find cars. And even though you don't find an antique, you know, someday, or if you're not into antiques, you know, that doesn't mean when you go to purchase a car, you get something that pleases your eye. You know, we have all these different personalities, and I know everybody says all the cars look the same, but there's little different nuances there, because that's you can kind of see them. Well, we can see them because we're in the industry and we see all these cars and we can see the differences in them. And if something just hits a person just right, they're going to say, yeah, you know, I really like that car.
Yeah.
And they're going to maintain it. And when they maintain it, then it's going to stay around for a long time.
We've actually found that naming them helps. We have not named our last two cars. And, you know, we took better care of them when they had names, because you just do. And for a long time, we were in the Civil Air Patrol years ago. And the Civil Air Patrol unit in Miami had its own vehicle. It had this big, I have no idea what it was. It was massive. We called it the Nimitz. And I would get behind it, and all you saw was hood for like miles. And I'm not really big, and I was smaller back then. I remember I'd get behind the wheel. I had, you know, the giant foot, you know, wide wheel, and you know, I drive that thing. I felt totally like invincible. It's like I was in a tank. But it was called the Nimitz, and you know, you get in the car and you go, here goes the Nimitz. And I remember I had parked the Nimitz to get Wendy's burgers to take back to the kids in the Civil Air Patrol. And while I was inside Wendy's, somebody backed into it, and guy comes in. He's like, I was going out with our food, and the guy's like hysterical. So I'm so sorry I hit your car. Couldn't see a mark on the Nimitz. Totally destroyed the trunk on their car. It was like a newer car. This was probably 80, 84, 85. The Nimitz was probably 1970s. You know, thing was just solid. And that was a new car that hit it, and it was apparently the manager's car that he had asked one of the young employees to move his car. He backed it into the Nimitz, and he's like, "Oh, I'm not gonna get in trouble." I was like, "Well, you didn't do a thing to my car. I don't care. Good luck with the boss, you know." And you know, the boss is after looking like, "What did you hit?" He's like, "That lady's car." There's like literally not a single mark on the car. Like maybe it moved it a little bit and totally destroyed the trunk on that other car. But you know, that Nimitz had like this legacy to it, you know, and we used to have Green Bean. Green Bean was an old Ford truck, little Ford, you know, Ranger. And so Green Bean was a thing. Put it in Green Bean, and we had Van Gogh. I mean, even our early minivan was called Van Gogh.
Yeah, we just never were brought up to name cars, and I know people would come into the shop and they would start talking about this person. You know, I don't think Cindy's feeling well. They're like, okay. They're like, who's Cindy? You know, we can't say, oh, who's Cindy, when we just let them talk and figure out it's the car.
You actually figure out it's a car. Yeah. And the first time I ever heard anybody do that was this old woman who worked for my aunt, who was also an old woman at the time. And she drove her car, and the car's name was, Elsa or something. And that's the first time I'd ever seen that. She's like, come on in. She'd hop in. I was little. Hop in the car. Come on, Elsa. Elsa and I are going to take you down the road. And so I'd hop in, and off we'd go in Elsa, you know.
That's funny. Yeah, but, you know, the cars do have personalities. They have little idiosyncrasies, and sometimes, well, I have to backtrack. There's a few times that I did call the car a name.
Was it a nice name or not a nice name?
A nice name.
Okay.
But, they have cars for an inanimate object. I mean, they have little personalities, meaning, little idiosyncrasies. You go over a little bump in the road, you hear, oh
Yeah.
yeah,
That's
things
okay.
like that.
That's not a
okay.
bad sound. That's a sound I'm used to. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, you hear these things, but you still need to have them checked. And most of the time, 99% of the time, it's just indigenous to that car.
Right. Yeah.
It's something that's normal, but you need to know if it's normal or not when they start making noises and start acting up and doing crazy things and saying, "Oh, that's just this car,"
Right. Yeah. Until the car doesn't run anymore. Yeah.
Yeah. Usually
That
it
was
is.
his car.
But now we have to do calibration updates, do program updates, calibration updates, and it just kind of, I don't know, the antique. It's so sad.
Are
I
there
know.
any full mechanical car like any kind of throwback cars that you're aware of that are made anywhere that may not have all the bells and whistles, or is it required for them now to have all these things so that making a kind of a throwback car isn't really an option?
If you could do it in your garage, in your own driveway or
That's what
garage,
kit cars are, I guess. Yeah.
yeah, kit car. But coming from the factory, no. And everybody's so thrilled about having the vehicle drive by itself, which is decades away from us,
Right.
from any of us, riding in them. If you're not in the industry, getting a chance to ride them, it's going to be pretty rare. But it just took the fun right out of it,
That's the whole point of having cars. You drive it.
You drive it, you tinker with it,
That's an interesting thought too. Is it just becomes mass transit?
Yeah.
Is it a car anymore?
It's going to be cost prohibitive, when
Yeah.
this really gets rolling. They're looking at like a rideshare system, for lack of a better term. Before, back in the turn of the 20th century, who had a car in their driveway? It's extremely rare. And then we moved forward and they became economically feasible. And then you had maybe one car in the driveway, and then a garage, developed the garage, an entirely different concept that, they didn't think of even 25
Car
years
barn.
ago.
Yes.
Whatever. Yeah. And then now we have two cars. Well, the average person owns 2.9 cars.
Wow.
And, you can see it in our driveways. They're in the garage.
The street, they're spilling out all over the place, or in the yard.
Yeah, whether they run or not, it says 2.9 per person.
Yeah.
Got up that high. No, I'm sorry, 1.9 per person.
Huh.
It's up that high, And how can we drive two cars at once? You can't.
Right.
But
then you're in that transitional period. I remember when all three of our kids were driving for a while, like we had everybody had a car, because everybody was going in a different direction, and so that was interesting. Come home, it's like, look at all the cars.
Wow.
They were all used cars and stuff, but everybody needed to go to school and other places. Everybody had their own thing.
They're having a party over there. Invited.
Exactly.
Everybody's just home.
Yeah. So I mean, those are interesting things. When you think about, what car is a really interesting thing itself, right? So it's you need it. It's a commodity. It takes you around. If you don't have it, you're at a disadvantage. People who have to rely on mass transit are at a disadvantage for the most part, because mass transit can't seem to come up to, a reasonable level, which would be nice.
Yeah.
So and then there's like the overkill, is like oversized stuff. Right? So you see all those huge trucks that nobody actually uses for the things you need a huge truck for.
Yeah. But see, that's their dream vehicle. They're happy. They love it, But eventually, those won't fit in the garage either in most garages. But eventually, the garage that was developed the turn of the 20th century is going to start to disappear again.
Yeah.
Because you won't have most likely a vehicle to put in there.
Yeah.
You'll just be taking your phone or whatever device we'll have at that time.
Right.
And call it up when you take you to the dentist, And
actually, my insurance company, I noticed like our insurance company, health insurance has been giving all these different like benefits for you get premium discounts for different health things. It's giving you a premium discount for taking an Uber to your next doctor appointment.
Is it really?
Yeah. Like, huh? Okay.
So what happens if you miss that doctor's appointment because they don't show up?
I still want my premium discount.
That's kind of a unique premium discount.
It depends. I mean, it's going to cost me more to take the Uber than to just drive myself over there.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, it's a whole different way to look at transportation and vehicles. They went from being this really an iconic artistic thing to this practical tool to now being phased into a different direction. So,
and then there's a couple of generations. Generation Z's not doing it. They want wheels. They want transportation. But before that, nobody wanted a driver's license.
Right.
We wanted our driver's license.
Our kids didn't want. Our kids dragged their feet getting their driver's license in the late early 2000s or mid 2000s. They weren't interested in their driver's license. Yeah. It was scary out there.
Yeah, it was, because you're trying to figure out what's going on here. Because, like I said, you and we were dragging our parents to go get our driver's license the day we turned 16.
Yeah.
We wanted that little piece of plastic to show, yep, we can drive by ourselves.
Yeah.
So, Generation Z, they want the same thing like we did. I don't know, it's just a little hiccup, I guess, with a couple generations, and now everything's okay again. But they want that independence. Yeah. They want to go when they want to go.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's interesting to see the changes that people do it. So for that Generation Z group that's all excited about cars, and obviously they're not going to be able to, necessarily get these really great old throwback cars. What would you think is probably the, I don't know, coolest reasonably priced car somebody could get right now? Is there, in terms of looks or functionality? It doesn't really matter. I mean, a long time ago, you used to want the Mustang, or you used to want the,
Oh yeah,
Corvette,
when you're like 13, 14.
Yeah. Corvette. It's a cool car today. Is it still Corvette? Probably still Corvette.
Yeah, Corvette. Yeah, they're going to be changing it back to the way it used to look on the C9. I'm glad to see that it's going back to the Corvette, and it's not looking so European. I mean, that's what distinguished the Corvette between the European stock was that iconic look, the iconic round taillights. Oh, when it went to C7 and they got rid of those, I was just having a moo cow. I'm like, it's not a Corvette. It looked like Camaro taillights in it. Come on, guys, And then they did it again with the C8, but they're going to be going back to what everybody loved about the Corvette, the look.
Yeah.
And for those, they're just starting to drive, and cars are expensive. You can't get a car for $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 anymore. You're going to get nothing but junk, and it's going to be breaking down on you. It's the bottom tier, unfortunately. But saving your money, they're all the same across the board. All the manufacturers.
What's the best entry level vehicle?
They're linked into each other. If I had a child who's going to start driving this next month, okay, get him a used vehicle. I'd get him an older used vehicle, maybe a 15, 20-year-old vehicle, okay? So when they did back into the USS Nimitz, I was in How, things like that, because things are going to happen. They're going to learn. We don't want them.
If I find the Nimitz, I'm driving the thing. So
yeah. Well, we don't want them to do this on purpose, but we want something that they can get their depth perception and they can learn how to drive with all all those distractions, without that infotainment where they're going to be plugging their phone in and then looking for music and things like that. Something pretty bare bones basic. And you can't find anything more basic and more solid with the least amount of repairs. If you could find a Buick LeSabre or an old Buick Century.
That's interesting.
I mean, those cars, the only thing really you did with those is you threw brake pads on them once in a while and just the services when needed. They were built pretty stout. And there's quite a few still around. I saw another one today and I'm like, see?
Yeah.
That's a keeper. That thing is going to go for a long time.
And I think starting with an older car like that makes sense. I mean, people end up getting their kids these expensive new cars, and it's like that's more horse than they can handle. So
yeah, and all the distractions,
yeah.
Oh, look at this, oh, look at that. Oh, the car's going to tell me about blind spots and everything like that. No, they need to learn to look.
Our kids, back when they started driving, at least I think our daughters did. Chris wasn't driving yet, but they had Toyota came through and they did this fantastic distracted driver course, and it was completely free. And they did it over at the Tampa Bay Downs race, horse track in the parking lot there. Mm-hmm. And I actually did it too, because like you could come, your whole family could do this. And it was so much fun. And you'd get in their driver thing, and they tell you what you're going to be dealing with, and you start driving, and the guy next to you just does nothing but distract you. And you're supposed to run an obstacle. You're supposed to drive an obstacle course in a certain amount of time. And you do it a few times, and he gives you that whole experience about like, hi, so, oh, look, somebody's calling. You want to talk to them? Oh, let's change the radio. You want something to drink? I remember my daughter driving, going, oh my gosh.
When they're tapping you on the shoulder, mom.
Everything, kicking the back of the seat, But it was and I don't even know if they must still do that in some places, but that was such an excellent driving course. It was fun, and they just had a ton of information, went from like tent to tent or booth to booth. They gave you a bunch of stuff, and you got like a discount on your insurance for the kids' insurance for going through it.
That's good.
But what a great like distracted driving course, that ought to just be a thing.
Yeah, that should. That's a great idea.
Yeah,
it really is.
And that was that was probably, they're all in their 30s now, so that was a few years ago. But today you'd have to have there's so many other features in the vehicles. I see people with like the monitors on for all sorts of things, and we still don't know how to use half the stuff in our minivan on that big screen. It's like, that thing's huge. It's distracting. I don't like it.
Yeah, it can be. You just blend it out.
Yeah,
and. Like I said, you have all the ADAS, advanced driver assist systems on there, and everybody thinks, oh, that will get me through this. What happens if you get in a car that doesn't have that?
Yeah.
And who's to say that if somebody sneaks in and you're coming over at the same time before that blind spot detection picks up?
Right.
What's going to happen? So...
And people do weird things. One thing I've been noticing lately, I've a lot, I've actually been fixating on it. It's like when I'm driving around here, especially when you get to a light, people are stopping like 2 or 3 car lengths back from the line because they're on their phone or something. Yeah, and they don't want to go through the intersection. It's like, but now your line, people are like being thrown back in the other intersections. It's screwing up the flow of traffic.
Yeah, they're distracted.
Yeah, and then they're doing they're compensating in these weird ways, by like you won't even know there's a car next to you if you might think there's nobody there, and then I always glance back now. And there's usually a car like 2 car lengths back stopped for the red light with all the space in front of them, and it's like that's bizarre.
Next time look and you'll see they'll be fiddling around with something. It's like pull over and do that or drive.
Yeah. So I hope kids that are learning how to drive today get to have all these wonderful experiences that are weird things that don't happen in, probably your driving classes. So, but I like that. I hadn't even thought about the Buick as a good starter car.
It's a good starter car. It really is. It's reliable.
Yeah.
And somebody runs into it, they run into it, and we're not going to get it fixed. But we go forward. But it's
and nobody's going to steal it.
They're more difficult to steal. I have to say, back in the late 90s, that was That was a pretty easy vehicle to steal because you
Yeah.
could crack the column there, and you
Yeah.
could take a screwdriver and just start it. Isn't that horrible? You just bypass the key.
Yeah.
So we did a lot of columns back there, a lot of repairs. But nowadays, everything's hooked into the anti-theft, and it's not as simple. Oh yeah, you can do it, but not like they could 30 years ago.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. So interesting stuff, and I, every time we talk about cars, I just think about other new things about them I never thought about, and I think it's fantastic. It's we use all these tools in our lives, and we barely pay attention to what we're doing, or we just do it out of habit. I get into my car, throw on the seatbelt, do so many things without ever thinking about it,
Oh yeah.
and it's if I changed the car on me, or if I changed the routine, I'd be in trouble. So I'm still going around with half of a tailpipe, and I don't think about that because I remember I got it crushed. I literally did origami with my tailpipe, and Ron came and sawed it off, and so I've got a sawed off tailpipe, and he didn't have time to put the new, extender on it.
Yeah.
So I've been driving around for a month with this, sawed off tailpipe. I don't think about it until we get a lot of rain. I'm going through a puddle, and it's like, oh, keep going.
You're pretty dependable, but yeah. And the other thing that you need to do is, since the reason why they have the tailpipes out the back is because you're getting all that toxic gas
coming in
away from the cab of the vehicle.
Right.
The cabs of the vehicle, they're not hermetically sealed.
Sure. Yeah.
Since you have that, make sure you have the window cracked a little bit.
I have been. And that's the other thing. It's like, I don't think about it again until I get in the car, though. So, but it's just such an interesting, like, extension of yourself. It's fascinating. So I thank you every time. Like I said, every time we get on here and chat about this stuff, it's an eye opener, and it's always nice to consider the things we use more deeply. That's what we do at AMROC, right?
That's right.
Consider everything you do. Pay attention to what you're doing. Have some sort of, be present, be aware, be situationally aware. Don't take for granted all the things we have around us, because it's amazing the things that keep us alive and keep us moving and keep us connected, and we just use it without thinking about what's behind any of it.
What's behind it? Yeah. Now you guys
until it failed. What's that?
You guys aren't going to be there at AMROC this weekend.
No, we are closed this weekend. We are going tomorrow night or tomorrow afternoon to set up Hatto augmented reality dodgeball game at MetroCon. Oh. And so we're going to be at MetroCon for Friday and Saturday and Sunday. We're normally closed on Sunday, but we will not have the doors open here on Friday and Saturday. We will be over at MetroCon, so anybody who's going over there wants to go play augmented reality dodgeball, come see us at the Tampa Convention Center. It should be a lot of fun.
We did that. That is a lot of fun. Peter and I did that time.
Yeah.
We're trying to figure it out at first. But, oh, yeah. So you're at the Tampa Convention Center all weekend.
Yep, exactly. And I think the official event starts on Friday morning. So we'll be over there. We'll start running matches probably around 11 a.m. We're actually going to do a mini tournament. Not an official tournament, just sort of fun for the guests that are there. We'll do some little mini tournaments. We're printing out some 3D printed medals for the winners.
Good idea. Yeah.
And then we'll have a MetroCon Grand Champ. So anybody who's out there and wants to come out, and we don't have a lot of viewers right now, but people always watch after we're done. So if you're watching this before the weekend, come out and join us at MetroCon. It's a fun event. Anyway, if you have never been to MetroCon, it's a wonderful event. There's nothing like it. So actually, there's a few things like it, but there's nothing like MetroCon itself. So it's a fun event.
Well, that's good. So you out there.
Yeah.
Tampa Convention Center, MetroCon this weekend.
Yep. And we're going to be doing the Build a Ride camp next week. Yeah, we actually have a few openings left on that. And we're actually going to be using the Invento build kits and be making some 3-wheeled rides for students. So they're going to be building from plans and working with this cool 80/20 metal kit and building themselves some rides. Yeah.
Should be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. So thank you again, Pam. Wonderful as always. Hang out a little bit after we shut off the broadcast. Thank you to those that tuned in, and we'll be back in August with another car talk, and hopefully Michelle and David and Peter can join us next week too.
Next month he'll be there.
All right. Okay, well, we'll see you all again now with
Bye,
Pam
guys.
back here for Consumer Car Care next month.
Thank you. Oh, and George says goodbye too. Yeah.